Hi everyone, welcome back. In this lecture, let's understand one of the most powerful features of Spring Boot, the auto configuration feature. Well, one of the biggest goals of Spring Boot is to reduce configuration and make application development faster and easier. Before Spring Boot, developers had to manually configure almost everything. For example, creating beans for the data source, configuring the dispatchers, servlet, registering view resolvers, and even defining JSON converters for JSON serialization. All of this was done through long XML configuration files or Java configuration classes. It was repetitive, time-consuming, and error-prone. To solve this problem, the Spring Boot team introduced auto configuration, which automatically configures your application based on the dependencies that are present in the class path. Let me repeat that. Spring Boot auto configuration automatically sets up the required Spring Beans depending on the libraries you have added to your project. So, if a dependency is available in your class path, Spring Boot will automatically configure related beans so that you can start coding immediately without writing any boilerplate configuration. Let's take a simple example. Suppose you have added the Spring Boot Starter web dependency in your pom.xml file. As soon as you include this dependency, Spring Boot automatically configures several key components for you, like the embedded Tomcat server, the dispatchers, servlet, JSON converters through Jackson, and many other internal beans that are required to handle web requests. You don't have to manually create or configure any of these. They are all auto-configured behind the scenes. That's why when we created our Hello World REST API earlier, we didn't have to do anything special. We simply created a controller class and started the application, and it just worked. All of this happens because of Spring Boot's auto-configuration mechanism. Now, the class that enables this feature is called @enableAutoConfiguration. In fact, when we use the @Spring Boot application annotation at the entry point of our application, it internally includes this @enableAutoConfiguration annotation. So even though we don't write it explicitly, it's already there, and that's what triggers the whole auto configuration process. Let's understand what happens behind the scenes. When the application starts, Spring Boot scans a special file called meta-inif/spring/org.springframework.boot.autoconfigure. This file contains a list of all the auto configuration classes that are part of Spring Boot's core modules. For example, WebMVC auto configuration, data source auto configuration, Jackson auto configuration, security auto configuration, and many others. Each of these classes is responsible for setting up the necessary beans for a specific feature of Spring Boot. So, Spring Boot detects what's available in your project and automatically configures it for you. This mechanism is made possible using conditional annotations like @conditional_on_class, @conditional_on_missing_bean, and @conditional_on_property. These annotations tell Spring Boot to enable or disable certain configurations depending on whether a specific class, property, or bean exists. For example, the WebMVC auto configuration class uses @conditional_on_class to make sure it only runs if classes like dispatcher, servlet, and servlet request are available. This means if you remove Spring Boot Starter WebMVC from your dependencies, Spring Boot will not configure the web layer because those classes won't be found in the class path. So everything is conditional and smart. Spring Boot only configures what's necessary for your application. Now, if you ever want to see which auto configuration classes are getting applied, you can enable a special property called debug equals true inside your application.properties file. When you run your application again, Spring Boot will print a detailed report in the console showing which auto configuration classes were activated and which ones were skipped and why. That's a great way to understand how auto configuration works internally. To summarize, Spring Boot auto configuration is all about reducing manual setup. It automatically creates and wires up beans based on the dependencies you have added in your class path. It uses conditional logic to decide which configurations to apply, and it saves you from writing large amounts of boilerplate code. So in short, you focus on writing your business logic, and Spring Boot takes care of the configuration for you. Alright, that's all about the auto configuration feature in theory. In the next lecture, we'll explore this concept practically. We'll dive into IntelliJ IDEA and see how Spring Boot actually performs auto configuration behind the scenes. Alright, great. I'll see you in the next lecture.